Hi there, Gary. Nice to see you, Jane. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's great to see you both virtually. Isn't it nice that we can connect together on Zoom since COVID and the outbreak and all of that gives us our telehealth as an option?
This is
Sure.
my first time ever.
Yeah, I'm happy to get to talk to you today about some of the things you're struggling with. Why don't you tell me a little bit of why you came to session, why you're seeking therapeutic services, and what it is you'd like to work on together?
Well, I've been smoking for cigarettes for some 25 or 30 years. I have quit multiple times, but then I seem to always fall off the wagon and come back when I get under stress. I have a very stressful job. I'm in charge of a claim department that handles insurance claims, and I only get involved in multi-million dollar claims. And so the pressure to do what's right and make the right decisions
Yeah.
uh, are very important. And that brings stress. It seems to always be a stress issue that brings me back to the cigarettes.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that with me. It's understandable that you'd be thinking about wanting to smoke a little bit more when you're stressed out in a high power position. And I want to do what we can together collaboratively with you and your wife, Jane, to see what we can do to help alleviate some of that stress and some of that desire to smoke. Jane, my next question is for you. Hi.
Uh-huh.
um, I'd love to hear from you from your perspective about the what Gary just said, how that impacts you, um, what it looks like in your household, what you would love to see as a result of coming to therapy, just kind of your take on why you're here today.
Okay, so first of all, I'm just excited and supportive of him because this is an individual thing for him.
Mhm.
It does not affect the home or the relationship or the boys at all. He never smokes at home. He never smokes in the car. He never smokes with the boys. So it's a very personal thing for him. And he really wants to work it out. A very strong-willed man, very
Mhm.
competitive, very committed. And I think he's frustrated because he can't do this.
Mhm. It's beyond his ability to quit on his own. Is that what you mean?
Yes, it's addiction, but he knows
Mhm.
it's not good for him. It's not good for his diabetes. It's not good for his health. It's, he knows all those things.
I'll
Mhm.
tell you how well I know it. As I stated, my job is president of a claim division for an insurance company.
Mhm.
And my company and me personally am centrally involved, heavily involved in the tobacco litigation that is currently raging. My company will pay millions, if not billions of dollars, and that thousands and thousands of individuals have become addicted and die from smoking. That's probably the most frustrating part
Yeah.
is I am not ignorant of the consequences of smoking, yet I can't stop.
Thank you for bringing that up. That is a very interesting piece of your story, I think. And I definitely would love to hear more about that. Since you brought up your occupation, I just want to ask a couple questions about your household and just general kind of intake information. Would you be okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. And you also mentioned Jane having two boys. How neat. I'd love to hear a little bit more about them and their age and kind of what they're into as well.
Well, they're very mischief. They're very much a pain in the ass. Uh, one is very aggressive. One is very passive. One is a troublemaker. One is not.
Oh,
Good
very
boys.
sweet. They said, how old are they?
17 and 20.
Now that we have talked just a little bit about why you're here and like the current state of where you're at as a family and also as an individual, I'd love to hear a little bit about the history behind why you started smoking, what you think kind of began that journey.
I was an athlete. I would go on road trips. My coaches all smoked. I would be on a bus with them. I would come home saturated with the smell of cigarettes,
Mhm.
and my mother would accuse me of smoking, despite being told countless times that that was not the case. The very first day away from home, I bought my first pack of cigarettes.
Mm.
And by the way, it was also the day that I got drunk for the first time. And fortunately, I got so drunk and so sick that I never touched alcohol until I was in my mid 40s after that.
Mm.
And I kind of wish that cigarettes had done the same thing, but they did not. Now, it also became a very social thing. During that period of time, there was a lot of advertising about the pleasures of smoking, and the tobacco companies were doing a very good job claiming that only the great people, only the good people, only high society people smoked. Tons of my peers smoked. It was quite common. I mean, you could smoke in restaurants, you could smoke anywhere. If I had to find a reason, I would say it was a rebellious act.
Okay.
But I'd never had a desire to smoke.
Yeah.
It's just, and that's what I think happened. I'm not certain. That's many years ago.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I have
Mhm.
another question if you're willing to answer it. Like, what have you tried, whether it be therapeutic counseling services, or if it's been, like you said, like the nicotine replacement therapies, or any conjunction of the two, like what has helped, what has been unhelpful, because that will help me guide kind of my recommendations for treatment as we move forward.
I'm going to, I did go to some sessions with a company psychologist. Now, either she or uh, the practice hadn't taken on cigarette addiction very seriously,
Mm.
because though I remember having them, I cannot remember receiving one bit of advice that helped me. I
Mm.
can't even recall what the advice was.
Mm.
Um,
So not a very good experience then.
it was not a good experience. It was not a good experience. So, maybe it's the fact that she was on my payroll and she didn't want to call me stupid or whatever. It just didn't work.
Yeah. And so you mentioned a little bit earlier the nicotine patch and those types of therapies. Did you attempt that at the same time in counseling, or was that a separate
That,
attempt?
that was separate. That was separate. I think that kind of typifies where I was. Is there was a number of things, ads on TV, talk shows, patches, counseling, that brought about a very temporary cessation of smoking, but something always brought me back.
Yeah.
And as I say, I think most of that time that bringing me back was stress.
Thank you for sharing that as well. And that's really helpful. And as I said, will help me guide kind of where we go in our future sessions. My next question kind of surrounds like your targeted symptoms. And Jane, if you notice anything or you have anything you'd like to add, what symptoms are you experiencing that's making it really, really difficult for you to quit smoking?
I don't see symptoms because when he comes home, it's like he forgets. I mean, it's just not part of the life here. It never has been. I sense the turmoil of just him working so hard. It's something that he wants to conquer. And he wants to set the best example ever for the boys. He doesn't want that to be a rebellion aspect and carry that on in the next generation.
Well, that's a great answer to my question. That's very helpful. Gives me a little bit more perspective. I think that's it as far as my intake question goes, just for my general assessment. I'm so glad that we got to talk today. Gary and Jane, thank you so much for coming. It's been great to get to know you and to get to assess some of what's going on in your life. I think that I got some really great information, and it will definitely kind of help me guide your treatment as we move forward. But just as like a closing final question to you both, is there anything else that you'd like to bring up that you think that I really need to know about your smoking or about your life, that will really impact kind of how I go about treating things, or just something you'd like me to know?
Well, I just recently got a call from Jane while I was in White Plains, New York. And she said to me, "You are now a grandfather for the first time."
Congratulations.
I immediately canceled my meeting. I got on a plane that very night. I flew to Grants Pass, Oregon, where I held my first grandchild. And upon holding that child, I decided that I would get a piece of paper and I would write down how I felt at that moment holding her for the first time. But as far as I could get is, "Taylor, today I held you for the first time." And I have decided I want to live forever. So I got in my briefcase, I got out my cigarettes, and I walked outside and I threw them in the trash can. And I have sworn I will never smoke again.
No, that is beautiful, Gary. Thank you so much for sharing that. It just warms my heart so much. So,
It should.
yes, it does. Thank you so much for coming today. I can't wait to continue conversation with you both and to make sure that we get Gary exactly where he wants to be.
And he wants you to help him keep those cigarettes out of his life.
I will do my
Wait, do you have a light?
What? Well, I promise to do my absolute best with the knowledge that I have. So I look forward to working with you both in the future.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, welcome back, Gary and Jane. As you know, these are my grandparents. This is Papa and Nana. And I am really glad to have the opportunity to share them and their story with my class today. So I just kind of wanted to ask you, Papa, because you're speaking to a room full of future counselors, what would you want them to know about like helping somebody who comes into their office that is struggling with addiction? Because that's the class that we're in. That's what this project is for. So what would you want those future counselors to know about addiction or nicotine?
In my case, I found a reason to live. And I think if someone along the line had taken it from, well, statistically, your life expectancy decreases XXX. If somehow or another they could have gotten through to me on the relationships with the people I love, or the value I could add to society, would go away with my demise, I think that would have been a better incentive than trying to get me to do some, I'm going to call them sophomoric exercises or thoughts.
Okay.
Because again, in me, I think it was, as I said, I still say it was a miracle. And a miracle in the sense that the desire totally went away. Totally. It was, bam, I'm done.
Interesting.
I had struggled for 26 years, 27 years, whatever it was, trying to get that to happen. So if they can find a purpose for shaking the addiction, I think that's great. Because I started to say the advantage I have gotten from being addicted is I am very tolerant, I am very understanding, I am very empathetic with addicts today that I would not have been had I not been there myself. You simply cannot explain it. All the logic in the world is irrelevant. Just irrelevant.
Well, thank you, Papa, so much for being willing to do this project with me. It was fun to get to talk to you about past you and have more insight onto who you are and how you became the person that I know and love today. So I love you. Thanks for doing this with me.
How much am I getting paid for this, Taylor?
You get paid in hugs.
Love you more.
Love you too, Papa.
All right,
Bye.
now I turn this thing off.